So welcome back, and we're having the Q&A now with Jay Stevens. Over to the audience.
Jay, having been involved in the aviation industry for the last 42 years, I've had my fair share of accidents and incidents. And I found something that you said resonated with me, and that was that commercial enterprise comes in and they circle the wagons. They're protecting their business, they're protecting their reputation. And I found that very much true in the incidents I've been involved in. The company whisks you away, you're forbidden to talk to the press, you're forbidden to talk to your family and friends, and you are managed at every turn of the way to create or recreate a story. Would you agree that you need better transparency and better support for people who are involved in situations as yourself? I can't believe that you've gone through this journey, and at the end of the day, there's nothing in it for you. You're left with workers' comp, which can't be all that much, but there has to be a better way.
It's funny because I align it exactly the same as the banks. It's like they're too big to fail. I think it's the same with aviation. Obviously, given the circumstances of my case, it was slam dunk on paper, absolute slam dunk. But it's like if you open the floodgates with one case, like I said, it could open it up for more and more. And I just think they have to keep the dam shut. I think it's honestly as simple as that. Like, it's too big to fail, the industry of aviation. And unfortunately, I found myself in a pretty big pothole there. And yeah, like I've said, I wish transparency was obviously a major point, but unfortunately we're in a pretty capitalist world at the moment. So as much as I do want it changing, I don't see it changing anytime soon.
Did you ever, in the course of going down in this chopper, make a deal with God? Did you say, this is not going to end well, and if you spare me, I'll do anything?
That's so funny you say that. When I was laying in the dirt, obviously I was thinking of my kids, and it wasn't verbatim that I was speaking to myself, but the energy of laying there, of knowing what you do to get back to your family, is something that I'd never ever forget. And even now, I kind of just sit there, and I know when I'm in excruciating amounts of pain, walking and doing the rehab, I just know that nothing will ever be as bad as that. And it's funny, I walked the 10 kilometres on the weekend, and I said to my friend exactly what you just said then. I said, I made a deal with the devil that day. And I said, I'm out here holding my end of the bargain up. We were about 9 k's in the pain cave. Obviously the last 2.5 kilometres were just all mud. There was logs all over the path. And I think he was just sitting there talking to me. He was just like, obviously, he was kind of impressed with what was going on. But I just kind of said, I've made a deal with the devil, and that was it. I got to see my kids again. I've had a second one. So I know whatever pain that I have, I'll be able to get through it. And that was the deal with the devil. It's really funny you said that, because it was identical. Perfect spot for the dark side to come out, because there's a vessel for it, and at the end of it's your kids, so win-win.
Jay, with that wonderful thing called hindsight, even though you were using your inner strength to stay calm, manage your breathing, and the rest of what you did immediately following the accident, do you ever regret now not screaming, yelling, shouting to get attention to be flowing out straight away as well?
I think about that. Yeah, it's definitely one I try not to mull on too much. I think just recounting...
Doesn't help.
Yeah, recounting that whole journey. If you could have pretty much written out the worst possible patient safety management journey, I think I pretty much ticked every single box. And going from using a set of skills that obviously were a strength, but obviously seeing a detrimental side of it and nothing to do with myself. Obviously it was a perceived reaction, something that you thought was a superpower at the time, which, yeah, it's a really interesting one. Yeah, I've tried not to mull on that one too much, because you just know it was just such, yeah, the ball was dropped at every single chance that afternoon and the following day. So.
But also I think the legal situation that you went through must have been absolutely horrendous, and I cannot believe that the legal system let you down so badly. But once again, as you say, there's little that you can do about it, so shrug your shoulders and move on. It's
an interesting one because, you know, I was quite naive to all that. Obviously, I'd never been involved in something of that magnitude, but you know what's right and wrong. Yeah. And one thing I have found is there's no such thing as right and wrong in the legal system. It's grey, and it's obviously set up that way for a reason. And yeah, unfortunately, like I said, the laws are grossly in favour of the aviation industry. And unfortunately, I fell down a pretty big pothole in there.
Jay, during the pandemic, we really found out exactly how bad it was for people of all kinds of disabilities during COVID. Did you really feel the brunt of that during your experience, and what's your opinion on it, if that makes sense? In
a weird way, it was kind of like I'd had the physical side of it happen before, because you'd learnt the same feelings that people were feeling locked down in COVID. I was essentially locked down in my own body there for a little while. So I'd kind of had a good little pre-run-up to COVID. Well, the big thing for me was having young kids in a small townhouse in a wheelchair. That was obviously pretty difficult for me. You know, I'm an outdoors person, always outdoors with the kids. Obviously the house doesn't need to be that big for that, because at every chance I'd get, we'd be outside. But not being able to do that, and then having to move around to multiple houses, you've got to navigate around there in a wheelchair, which obviously is a lot tighter. So from a personal note, probably the living quarters was the biggest thing for me. And you know, I guess as a social collective, isn't it funny that someone says you can't do exercise, and then you've never seen more people exercising with a mask on? Like, it's backwards, isn't it? So that was probably one of the biggest things for me. Like I said, I had a pre-run up into it, but it's like if someone says you can't do something, you're like, oh, everyone just goes and straight and does it. So that was probably one of the more interesting things probably that I found.
Well, speaking of exercise, how long did it used to take you to do the bike track?
Oh yeah, running around the lake, you know, it was 45 minutes. So it was a perfect duration morning run. So I had a little Ironman pram, so I just put the little one in. It didn't matter if it was winter, he was rugged up. As long as I could get out there with him, because he'd kick his legs and stuff like that. So that was probably one of the biggest joys I think I had with fatherhood, was being able to exercise, which was obviously pretty paramount for me before kids. That was my stress reliever, that was my medicine. And then to do that and see your little kid kicking his legs every single day, that was just perfect, win-win for me. So it'd take about 45 minutes to get around there with him.
And then last weekend, first time you did it?
Yeah, so it was 5 hours and 5 minutes walking time. I'd take little rests, but I'd only limit myself to 2 minutes. It's kind of just my exercise head. I didn't want to have any too big a rest, because you stiffen up anyway, and I've already got stiff legs. So I'd take about 2 minutes. So I'd limit myself to only 2 minutes, and I'd have to get minimum 500 metres before I took another rest. So they'll probably rest each K. Yeah, so it's about 5:05 walk time. It's probably about 5 minutes 30, 5:40 in total.
And I can only imagine the tenacity and the determination that you demonstrated to do that, to take so long compared to pre the event, because I know that's what you call it, the event. And you're determined, so how long had you been planning to do?
Yeah, it's probably been in the head for when I walked up Palm Beach Lighthouse in January, February. So that was the first one I wanted to knock off.
How long did that take?
Oh, I think that took about 4 hours too.
Because that's pretty full.
Yeah. I forgot how steep that one was. So I did that in about January, February. So I knew that it was 1 year to getting my braces in June. So that was kind of always in the crosshairs then. So I'd kind of started thinking about it in January. It was just about getting volume in the legs. And I had it in the head for about 3 months, so it was nice to knock it off. In a weird way, like it's kind of already done. Like I said, tapping into that dark side, like I'd die out there getting that thing done. So I just know it's already done.
Yeah.
So, like I said, just that deal with the devil, it's done. Like I'd crawl to finish that thing off. So that's kind of just that headspace I have about things now. Like I said, I made a deal with the devil that day, and I'll hold up my end of the bargain when I have to.
Okay, any more questions?
Yes. Jay, what are the biggest things that your friends and family can do to assist you? How can they support you? What do you need most?
The main thing is just having a chat with someone. Like I said, I'm pretty self-sufficient. It's more just having a chat. Honestly, it's that simple. I'm not as close with my family, so I don't have a parent that I can call on and have those chats. So to have some friends who you can sit down and, like I said, there's no manual for this. And like I said, you've got to sort it out on the fly and figure out what works for you. And the biggest thing I've found is just having like I said, my friendship group's got a lot smaller, but it's a lot more close. It's a lot closer. So just those phone calls and just catching up with close friends, and just that close companionship. I think that's just probably been the big thing.
And what about people walking around the bike track with you, or do you prefer to do it
I like it
with
alone.
your mate Tim? Yeah.
That's probably the big thing. I like it alone. I like to, like I said, it's that dark side thing. I like to hurt. I just, because walking, it's never easy. So it's not like you can go, I'm going to go for a relaxing walk today. It just doesn't happen. So, like I said, I've still got the same amount of energy. I've got the exact same amount of energy, but I just can't get it out the same way I did before. So, like I said, that's the vessel, because the more walking I do, the better I'm going to get at it. It's just a very difficult thing each time you do it, so you kind of got to pump yourself up for it. And like I said, you need all the energy you can get. There's no easy walks. Like it's dirty work. Like it's the easiest way to describe it. It's dirty, hard, relentless work.
Pain is gain, right?
That's it. That is it.
So, Jay, you're saying that you're walking more. What does that do for your prognosis? Is there room for improvement? Or
In
you don't know?
my head, there always is, because I know technology is going to catch up. Obviously, working in that field, but in my head, there's always 1%ers where if you want to find them, you can find them.
Yeah.
And a lot of the walking I do is linear, so everything's forward and back.
Yeah.
But I can move into balance work and lateral work. So there's always ways, like when you're navigating a kitchen now, obviously you've got to turning around and stuff like that. So I try and incorporate a lot of that stuff as well. So in my mind, there's always room for improvement somewhere.
Okay.
And it just opens up more things that you can do. Like I said, I can
At
navigate.
what level was your spine crushed?
So I was at T12,
Okay.
which is
Yeah.
T12L1,
Yeah.
which is just where the nerves for your legs start. So it was called a burst fracture. So it's essentially having a spinal cord there and someone hits it as hard as they can from the top and the weakest one pops out. And that was T12L1. And so that was probably, I'm glad it wasn't any higher. Like I said, I've sat there with people who are 2 vertebrae higher and they lose those organs.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's weird to sit there and say I'm glad for where I had my injury, But like I said, each level you go up, someone's losing more and more and more. And I sat there was a doctor who was the same age as me. He worked out at Orange Hospital, and he was riding his bike to work, push bike, and sun was rising, and a lady came up behind him, didn't see him. Obviously hear me, he was up at like C1, right up top. Hands, couldn't move any, Christopher Reeve style, couldn't move any. He wasn't on a ventilator, but when you see someone using a computer with a tube, they're moving their head around for the mouse, inhale is left click, exhale is right click. You know, something that you never ever see. You know, your perspective on things gets shifted pretty rapidly to sit there and use this. I saw him there with his, I was crying. There was one night I was there, his kids came in and he was there on the thing and his kids were climbing up on him. And this was after I just found out that I was about to have my one. I'm really getting uptight talking about it now. His kids were on him, crawling all over him. Yeah, just couldn't do a thing. You know, you see that, that's pretty, that's it, honestly, yeah, that's it. Yeah, I just sit there and like, yeah, that was full on. Seeing something like that, that was intense. Thank you.
I've always thought you have to play the cards you're dealt with as much courage and grace as you possibly can, and you have done that in spades, so you're to be congratulated. And thank you for such an uplifting message of hope.
No, thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming out, and yeah, like I said, you can always pull a poker face when you get a bad hand, so you can always bluff.
You're going to say something.
On the journey that you have been on into getting back into, I don't know how to say it, able-bodied? Is that the right way? How long do you feel you have until you were back in the state you once were before that accident? Hard to say.
Yeah, like I said, it's you kind of look at it like a lifestyle now. Like I said, the incomplete spinal cord injuries, it's probably the tricky one, because in complete you know what you're going to get. You know that, you know, it's really difficult. Whereas incomplete, everything's just up in the air, and sitting there trying to set goals and stuff like that. I did that at the start, but I've morphed more into a lifestyle type thing now. I know pretty much whenever I'm doing the work, it's going to come anyway. So I've just had to incorporate it into a lifestyle. So I'm always walking, always doing as much as I can upright, and you know, the results will come. Technology will catch up, and like I said, I'm out here walking with my kids now, so I can walk across the sand to get to the water now. So just simple things like that. If I wasn't to get anything else back, I'm winning. You know, that to walk into the ocean after I mentioned what happened before when I'd had a panic attack in the car, it's like you're in a straitjacket in the car and you're like, So to be able to regain that, I can park at the beach, I can walk across the sand and jump in the water with my kids. So I think that's pretty powerful. So
what about boogie boards? Can you jump on a boogie
yeah,
board?
I actually surf.
Cool. You
yeah,
surf?
Yeah, I've got a new board and that made, so obviously I'm prone on my stomach. I'm looking at possibly trying to get in contact with someone to set up a hybrid board where I can get to my knees.
Yes.
Because I can balance on my knees. I just can't pull myself up onto my knees. So I'm going to look at getting in contact with someone to make a concept board, because obviously, you know, surfing on your knees, you can put a lot more weight where it needs to be distributed, whereas when you're on your stomach, you're only quite linear. So yeah, like I said, being able to get back out in the water has been magic. That's medicine. So yeah, like I said, I'm back in the water, I'm walking, I've got young kids that I'm going to be able to do so much with now. So yeah, very lucky, very, very lucky.
So all your inventors out there, what do you want invented?
A concept surfboard with a floating surface which allows me to paddle with my legs, but when I want to get to my knees, handles to pull up, and then my knees will come up into the board, and then I'll be up on my knees, and then I can obviously surf on my knees. I've got this ability to do that, so.
Cool. So have you gone to any of the local surfboard?
Yeah, I've had like some initial conversations with them. I've just been looking at the types of materials and stuff to use. It's quite tricky to use metals and stuff with fiberglass and foam, it's quite weak. And metals, if anything bangs against it, cracks and then the water gets in. So possibly looking at other materials, like carbon fibre and stuff like that. So yeah, don't worry about that. Yeah. Hopefully workers' comp will be, might be able to... Concept, guys, concept.
Eleni, our last guest speaker, I'm pretty sure someone said her brother does surfboard manufacturing.
He shaped my boards pre-accident.
Oh, so you know him.
Mike Salakis, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So have you spoken to him about this?
No, I haven't spoken to him yet. I was looking to more get the concept down,
Yeah.
sketched, and looking to take it to someone there. So yeah, don't worry, they're all in the crosshairs. So,
Cool.
so I've got them all lined up on speed dial.
Okay, any last minute questions before we finish up?
No, just an observation, because talking of surfing, and I have my eldest son has major knee problems, nothing like yours, of course, but when the surgeon told him he would never surf again, he said, "Yes, I will, you bastard." And he does, but his knee is perpendicular to the rest of his leg. But that to him was the most devastating thing, because he said, you get out in the ocean and you forget all your problems.
That was one of the first things I thought when I was laying down in the dirt.
Yeah.
I'm like,
are you going to be able to surf?
yes, that was obviously, that was the number one passion and hobby,
Yeah,
closely followed by jogging. But that was one of the first things I'm like,
yeah.
everything's changed. I just knew. Yeah, that was it. That was one of the first things that obviously came to my mind. That was, that's sus medicine. It's pretty special going out into the ocean. But like I said, everything melts away.
Absolutely.
Jay, thank you so much. And none of us can even have any understanding of the journey you've been on, but to have the courage to come and share it with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
And write the book.
Still getting written.